Welcome to Thursday's Maths. So today we're going to do a problem solving lesson, building on everything we've done this week, and we're going to do more problem solving tomorrow as well. Okay, so here is our discover for today. So we're in a tile shop. We are tile shopping for a bathroom or a kitchen maybe. And Holly has chosen this delightful tile, which is white. And then sometimes it's got a blue circle in the middle. Sometimes it's just plain. And Holly is saying the blue circles cover 18% of each tile. So if you had a white tile, just one, with a blue circle in the middle, the blue would be 18% of that one tile. And some of the tiles are 100% white. Now, the problem that they are asking us to solve today is this. If you look at design A, which is the one on the left with the 4 tiles, out of that whole design, what percentage of that bit is blue? So what percentage is blue? When you've done that one, what percentage of design B and C are also blue? Okay, pause the video, have a go, and then we'll go through it. Okay, so what we can say is that for every one tile, 18 parts out of every 100 are blue. So you could write that as a fraction as 18 out of 100. You could write that as a percentage as 18%. But we're not thinking about just one tile. We're thinking about 4 tiles, and we're thinking about that as the whole. So as you can see from the screen here, if you then had, let's say we do it as a fraction to start off with, but you can just think of it as a percentage as well. If you had 2 tiles, you would have 200 parts, so you'd have 36 out of those 200 would be blue, because 18 out of 100 are blue. So if you had 2, you'd have 36 out of 200. If you then simplified that, you would get 18 out of 100, because 18 parts out of every 100 are still blue. If you had 3 tiles then, this time you'd have 18, 36, 54 parts out of 300 parts. And again, if you simplify that, it would be 18 out of 100, because it's still 18 parts out of 100, out of every 100 would be blue. So it would still be 18 out of 100, which would still be 18%. Then if you have 4 tiles, you've got 72 blue parts out of 400 parts, which again, if you simplify it, still leaves you with 18 out of 100, which is still 18%. And that's because every tile has got 18% blue. For B and C, however, it's a little bit different, because this time you've got some tiles that are completely white. So if you look at design B, it's got 2 blue circles. So it's got 18 parts blue in one tile and another 18 parts blue in the other tile. So altogether there's 36 blue parts. So that's my numerator. There's 4 tiles, each one made up of 100 parts. So I've got 36 out of 400. So this time, if I simplify that to 9 over 100, because I divide it all by 4, 9 out of 100, what would that be as a percentage? It'd be 9%. If I then look at design C, again, we've still got 36 parts blue because there's 2 blue circles, but this time it's only out of 300. So I've got 36 over 300, simplify it by dividing by 3, and I've got 12 out of 100. So as a percentage, what would that be? 12%. Well done. Okay, now for our think together. So this is using the missing number bits that we did yesterday. So this shape here on the right is 15% of the whole shape. How many triangles are in the whole shape? Well, we can see here on the right hand side, 6 triangles therefore make up 15%. Now, can you multiply 15 to get 100 straight away? No, you can't. Can you divide 15 to get 10%, to then times it by 10 to get 100%? Well, no, you can't. But what can you divide 15% by that you can then times to get 100? Well, you could divide it by 3 to work out 5%. So this whole shape here is 15% of a normal shape, of a whole shape, sorry. I just want 5%. So I'm going to divide this shape into 3. So this here is now 5%. This bit here, I'll see if I can change colour. Oh no, oh wait. Ooh, there we go. Now I can change colour. This bit here is 5% of this shape, and this bit here is 5% of the shape. So altogether it would be 15% of the shape. So I've split it into 3. So 15 divided by 3 is 5. So I can now see that this part here is 5%. So 2 triangles, ooh, just about can draw a 2, equals 5%. Right, how do I now go then from 5% to 100%? What do you times 5 by to get to 100? Well, you times it by 20. So 2 times 20 is 40. So 40 triangles would make the whole shape. Right, have a look at this next bit then, see if you can work this one out. If 40 triangles are 100% of the shape, what fraction of the whole shape is this? Have a go. Pause the video and then we'll go through it. Well, I've counted the triangles and there was 8. There was 8 triangles. So 6 triangles was 15%. 2 triangles were 5%. So I know that it's going to be more than 5%. It's going to be more than 15%. Because if 6 triangles were 15%, then I've got 8 triangles. It's going to be larger than that. Now, I know that 40 triangles were 100%. So if I wanted to make this as a fraction, I've got 8 triangles out of 40. I've got 8 out of the whole thing, 8 out of 40. I've then simplified this to make 1/5 because you've divided them both by 8. So this diamond shape, I suppose it is 1/5 of the entire shape. Okay, this one is pretty much what we were doing yesterday, so I think we should be okay with this one. So Toshi and Amal each have £40 left. How much do they have to begin with? So if we look at Tosh's, you can see that he spent 3/4 of his money. So he's left with 1/4, which is £40. And they've drawn a bar model in blue for you. So hopefully you can work out what the whole would be. How much do they have to begin with? Amal has now got £40 left and he spent 90%. So if he spent 90%, he must have 10% left. So see if you can work out what the whole is for him. Okay, answer time. So if we know that 1/4 is £40, to work out 4/4, we need to do 40 times 4. 4 times 4 is 16. 40 times 4 is 160. So he must have had £160. Right, this one then. This one was 10%. So this time £40 is 10%. So to work out the whole, how do I get from 10% to 100%? I times it by 10. So £40 times 10, £400. Well done. Okay, now it's workbook time. So you haven't got this particular workbook at home, so you can't do these in your actual workbooks, so you can just write them on paper. Okay, question number 1 is very, very similar to the Discover for today. So, patterns are made from these 2 tiles. One tile has got 40% shaded out of 100%. That's really important. The other triangle has got 0% shaded out of 100%. So, if you look at A, we'll go through the first one together and then I'll let you do B, C, D and E. So, for A, you've got 2 of the shapes where the 40% is shaded. So it would be very easy to say, oh, well, I've got 40%, 40%, I've got 80% shaded. But what you've got to think about is what is the whole. So you've got 40% out of 100, and then you've got another 40% out of 100. So together, you've got 80%, but out of 200. And then you can simplify 80% over 200, you can divide them both by 40 and you would end up with 2/5. That would be it as a smallest fraction possible, the simplest fraction, 2/5. Right, have a go at B, C, D and E. Okay, answers then. So for B here, you've got 40% shaded, 40% shaded, 40% shaded, 40% shaded. So you've got 40, 80, 120, 160 out of 100, 200, 300 and 400. So you've got 160 over 400. Simplify it by dividing by 8. Then divide by 10, or you could just divide by 80 and you should have ended up with 2/5. For C, you've got 40 out of 100, 40 out of 100. So you've got 80 out of 200. Simplify it by dividing by 40 and you end up with 2/5 again. This one is actually the same as A. It's just in a different pattern, but it's the same shapes. For D, we've got 40% and we've got 40%, so we've got 80%, but out of 100, 200, 300, 400, so we've got 80 out of 400, and if we simplified that by dividing by 80, the simplest fraction would be 1/5. E might seem a little bit tricky, but if you use what you already know from D, actually it's not too hard. So E was asking you to design a pattern that had 1/10 shaded. Now, when you had D, which had 2 shaded shapes and 2 non-shaded shapes, you had 80 out of 400, which simplified to give you 1/5. So that told me I needed to double the amount of non-shaded material that I could then simplify it to 1/10. So my pattern had a fraction of 80 over 800, which you would simplify to 1/10. So that would need 2 shaded triangles. So that would get me the 80. And then I would need 6 non-shaded triangles. You may have had a different solution to that as well. Right, question 2. This is 30% of a shape. What fraction of the whole shape is this? Second one, draw what the whole shape could look like. Right, have a go. As a little hint, you might want to chop your squares into triangles. Okay, at first, this might seem a little bit tricky, but the more you look at it, the easier it is. You've just got to use those problem-solving skills. So, this shape here is 30% of the shape. Well, what I've noticed is that to get from this shape to this shape, you have to add a square. You're not adding a square and a triangle. So that made me think, I wonder if I could cut this square into triangles. Would that help my thinking? Well, actually, that's really helped my thinking, because this shape here, which is now I've made into 1, 2, 3 triangles, is 30% of a shape. So if 30% of a shape is 3 triangles, what percentage is 1 triangle? Well, hopefully you're telling me it's 10. So if 1 triangle is 10%, I've cut this square into 2 triangles and this square into 2 triangles. So what fraction is this? Well, this is 10, 20, 30, 40, 50%. Okay, it's 50%. So 50% is 50 over 100. And we know that 50% or 50 over 100 is the same as a half. So 1 over 2, half of the whole shape. To draw what the whole shape should look like, you either want 10 triangles, or you could have made them into 5 squares. Okay, now the last problem for us today is this one. Andy buys 3,000 grams of fruit. 3/10 of the weight is apples, 45% is bananas, the rest is grapes. What is the weight of the grapes? So, take your time. They've started you off drawing a bar model. How can this help you? Have a go. Okay, this one took me a minute to get my head around. As you can see, I've kind of had to change my bar model halfway through to help my thinking. So, I know that 3,000 grams of fruit is the whole thing. So the whole thing is 3,000 grams or 100%. Now, what I did first of all was I cut it into 10 pieces. So each long piece, each part, was worth 10%. So I coloured in 3 parts to make 30% for my apples. Then I coloured in 4 parts for my 40%. And then I thought, I'm not really sure what to do now, because now I need this 5%. So then I drew a line through my bar. So now I've got 20 parts. So it's not quite drawn right like a bar model, but it helped my thinking. And that's all that matters, as long as you are visualising it the way it's going to help you. So now I've got 20 parts. So each bit is now worth 5%, really. So here I've got my 45%, which is bananas. Now, when I did that, I suddenly realised, well, wait a minute. I've got 30% and 45%. I've actually got 75%. What do I know about 75%? It's the same as 3/4. So actually, if you'd worked that out first of all, you could have drawn a nice bar model with 4 parts and coloured in 3 of them. So that then told me that my remaining part, my grapes, was 25%. Now I need to work out 25% of 3,000 grams. How do we work out 25%? Well, 25% is the same as 1/4. And to work out a quarter, we divide by 4. So then I did 3,000 divided by 4. You can't do 3 divided by 4, so you write a 0 and you rename. 30 divided by 4 is 7, which would be 28. You've got 2 left over. 20 divided by 4 would be 5, and nothing divided by 4 would be nothing. So the grapes would weigh 750 grams. Very well done if you did that without my help. Really impressed today. They were not easy problems, so well done. See you tomorrow.